Welcome back to another episode. You're staying with us. I'm loving this. All right, so we're in the trust series right now, and today's topic is an example of a trust. We're going to do a little bit of a deep dive, and we're going to bring together the trustee, we're going to bring together the beneficiary, and the idea of beneficial interest. Now, this kind of touches upon direction of investment, I guess. No, I'm sorry, power of direction. That's it. Power of direction. So the power of direction is today's focused because it allows us to do some very interesting things with a trust. So remember, a trust is powerful in that it can allow you to use wealth or use debt to serve a specific purpose. Now, when we talked about the trustee, we're dealing with the public side of a trust. So the trustee is someone in an official position that is essentially the representative of a trust. The beneficiary has a couple steps removed and they're kind of in the background. You don't know or see who the beneficiary is. They're kind of hidden. So when you consider the beneficiary, that is the individual or the entity within a trust that allows a lot of everything happening behind the scenes. They essentially are the private side of everything. Everything the beneficiary does can be done underneath the water or kind of hidden. So when you consider those two roles, when you're addressing wealth or when you're addressing debt, that essentially allows you to do some very interesting things. So within this trust example, we are going to play out a scenario I actually did with my son. We actually created or identified value from a pair of ice skates we found at the, what was it? Oh, Goodwill. So we went by Goodwill. We found a pair of ice skates that were on sale for, it might have been $6, $6, and they were brand new. Like maybe barely been touched, not even a scratch on them. And me being playing ice hockey, I can identify a good pair of skates. So, and doing my research online, I found out that brand new, those skates that were selling for $6 at Goodwill were worth $200. So I knew there was a deal to be had, and that's what entrepreneurs do. We find good deals. All right. So with that, let's say we had a trust that was put in place. We'll call it Nice on Ice, considering it's ice skates. So we have our Nice on Ice trust, and we have a trustee and we have a beneficiary. For all intents and purposes, I will be the trustee, and for all intents and purposes, my son will be the beneficiary. So the whole goal was to show him how I do business, but put it in the context where he can actually benefit from something from it, because he wanted a Nintendo Switch. So we figured we would put the proceeds together to get the video game system that he was dying for. All right. So within that, we identified something that we wanted. So as a trustee, which we actually serve the purpose of a trustee in this particular case, it was on me to acquire those ice skates. So I could either do that with, let's say, money from the trust. I asked the beneficiary, I say, hey, Ethan, you have $6 to buy these ice skates. And he, passes that on to me, and I actually buy them on his behalf. All right, so that's me as a trustee. So I'm actually walking in the store, and I'm purchasing these ice skates, right? So I had those ice skates. I put them in the trust. So now we have a funded trust. We have ice skates that are in the trust. Now with the ice skates in the trust, the next question is, what are we going to do with them? All right. So on the wealth side, we can either sell these skates publicly, which I could do on the trust side, or we could sell them privately, in which my son, Ethan, he could sell his beneficial interest in the trust. So then instead of selling the ice skates themselves, he's selling the trust that surrounds the ice skates, and he can pass that along to someone else. Now, the beautiful thing about that is he doesn't really have to disclose any of that stuff because he's just transitioning his beneficial interest within the trust to someone else. So when he does that, that happens underneath the water. That's a private transaction. He doesn't have to report that anywhere. All right. Now, if it was, a considerable amount, he would still have to pay his taxes and so forth with that, but he would not have to disclose it. Now, if I did it in a trustee position, that's something that the entire world will be able to see. That's essentially how a trust works. All right. So we actually did everything, on top. We did it on top of the water, in public view, because it wasn't really a big deal. A $6 pair of ice skates, not a real big deal. But I did it within the context of a business. So I did it through a business. And what we were able to do once we actually acquired the skates is we had to find a buyer. All right. Now, the beautiful thing about being able to sell things online is the buyer doesn't have to be someone that we know. It can just be someone who's interested in what we're selling. All right. So posted everything online. I believe we use, might have been Sideswap or something that sells used and new hockey equipment. And we were able to sell them online. I think we sold them for, it might have been $120, which is pretty good considering we bought them for $6. All right. The whole idea of being an entrepreneur, when you're selling something, you can't sell it at full retail price. You have to give a significant discount because as an entrepreneur, you're creating win-win-win situations. So in our particular case, my son won out because he got what he wanted. The buyer of the ice skates went out because they got what they wanted. And, as a father, I got to teach my son a lesson about what I actually do. All right? So hopefully you learned a little bit about that, how trusts work, what you actually need to do in order when you're actually operating a trust, what a trustee can do, what a beneficiary can actually do, and how you can create money out of thin air. So, how to create money out of thin air? $6 pair of ice skates sold for $120 after paying the fees and everything else. I think Ethan, who just pretty much was witnessing the transaction and the beneficiary of the proceeds, ended up making $90 from nothing, right? Just from me identifying the value and literally just passing along to him. So hopefully this lesson was useful and important to you. Hopefully it gives you a little better idea of how trusts actually work. On one of the upcoming episodes, we will talk about the power of direction. The power of direction. That is essentially who's making the decisions within the trust. In some cases, it's the trustee. In other cases, it's the beneficiary. So when you actually set up that trust, you want to know what you're actually doing. So hopefully I'll catch you on the next episode. And until then, enjoy. Bye.